you're tackling a renovation this year, or perhaps you just want to redecorate your living room so it's trendy and stylish for the year ahead, this video is for you as I share 7 of the top living room trends for the year ahead. And if you're on the fence about trends, hear me out. Everything I'm sharing today are pretty timeless classic trends and new ways that we're decorating with now. And of course, if there's something you really love, it doesn't actually matter if it's a trend or not. Just go with what makes you feel good within your living room. I'm going to kick it off at number 1. We are seeing a rise in tactile design. And what I mean by that is embellishing the room and layering it with lots of different textures for visual interest, but also to help us feel grounded in the space. Crushed velvet on crushed velvet is never a good idea, in my opinion. And tactile design is about introducing gorgeous textures that have a bit of a juxtaposition against each other that are going to make a room feel warm and inspiring. So in a living room, your area rug is one of the best places to instill this tactile element into your space. The main thing that you don't want to get wrong is the size. Now, when choosing your rug, make sure it's large enough so it goes underneath the feet of your chairs or however you're laying out your room. If you have something so small, it's going to look like the rest of your furniture is floating and it's not going to feel as warm and tactile in the space. So an area rug is a great place to do this, and I even say on a carpet, especially if you've got a grey carpet and you desperately want to warm the room up, I'd start with your carpet and then play around with using different textures and colours across your furnishings, such as cushions and throws. This is a really affordable way to start bringing in some texture and switching up your room literally immediately. And other ways that we're seeing a little bit more of are wall coverings. Now, textured wallpaper is something that we are seeing a return of. You may have remembered your parents or your grandparents having textured wallpaper, and it quickly became not very trendy, but we're seeing some new ways of having wall coverings with texture now, and this could even include slat wall paneling if you want to bring that kind of texture in, and it has great acoustic qualities as well, especially if you're planning a cinema room or perhaps your living room. You just want a little bit more soundproofing in there. Number 2, layered lighting scheme. Having previously worked for a lighting company, I learned a lot about how to light a home effectively. A layered lighting scheme basically means layering your room with different light sources. Now, this is really important in the living room because as the role of the room changes throughout the day, you might need different levels of light. And in the evening, you typically spend your time in your living room relaxing, maybe watching TV, catching up about your day, and you kind of want some more ambient lighting going on. Now, for a living room, typically you're going to have your overhead ceiling light. The main layering that you can use are wall lights, which I love, especially if you're doing like a light above artwork. We've got table lamps and we've got floor lamps. But the big rising star across all interiors is the rechargeable lamp. Now, we've actually seen quite a lot on the market towards the end of last year. One of my favourites is Pookie, and not only have they launched rechargeable table lamps, they've also launched rechargeable wall lights, which is amazing if you don't have any plug sockets nearby and you don't have to spend hundreds and hundreds of pounds of getting your electrician in to grind out your wall and put in a space for those new lights to go. So rechargeable table lamps are probably one of my favourite additions over the last year. We're going to see them so much more. They're becoming more mainstream. There's actually some really great solutions on Amazon. I'll actually link a few of my favourites in the caption for you. I've got a couple from Pookie, and I also do the magic bulb trick. This is great because you can just turn any lamp into a rechargeable lamp. The bulbs are around 18 to 20 pounds. I'll also link in the caption below which one I use, and you can just cut the wire off safely, obviously, and then pop your magic bulb in and just recharge it when you want. Now, living rooms tend to have pockets and you might not have much light in certain areas, so adding a plethora of rechargeable lamps is just one of the easiest ways to create a really cozy and ambient living room. Number 3, and this is a trend that we are seeing stemming across all of our interiors, Earthy design trend is one of the most popular design trends of the moment, and is also one of the easiest to achieve. As humans, we have an inherent need to feel connected to nature, and earthy inspired colours and furnishings make us feel good. And an earthy design trend is so easy to replicate once you know what colour scheme you're looking for. I've got some colours here that I'm just going to show you from Coat Paints, which would be almost the perfect earthy colour scheme. These are paint colours, but it just gives you an idea of what colours to use in your scheme. Typically, earthy colours are anything we can draw from nature. So that's typically greens. I actually have this green in my office, it's gorgeous, and that's Park Life by Coat Paints. We've got browns. We've got gorgeous, warm, neutral here, like biscuity coloured. And then, of course, we've got whites. And other ones that you can include in your earthy colour scheme are blues, if you want a more coastal influence to your space, and obviously reds. Gorgeous terracotta, rusty reds. Reds are very in for 2025 as well. And just bring these colours in through your... Be mindful about what wall colour you choose, and that will lead the rest of your colour scheme. So if I went for a green, I wouldn't use green necessarily in the rest of my scheme. I would lean into warming that up with some gorgeous reds, some warm creams and whites. And if I kind of stick with more of a neutral colour like this one, warm that up even more by using your reds. You can introduce your greens. And of course, don't forget those natural tones. We're talking wooden units, wooden coffee tables, and of course rattan. Rattan is a winner. It's just so good for concealing all your bits and bobs, and it just brings natural warmth into the space. And number 4, on the lines of colour, as you may have seen some of my trending videos for the year ahead on interiors, richer and more highly pigmented colours are in, and we are going bold in our living rooms this year. Greys and very kind of pale beiges are out, and we really are digging deep and going for something that makes us feel better in the space and being more experimentative with colour, which is something that we haven't seen a lot in interiors over the last few years. Now we can take inspiration from that with Benjamin Moore's colour palette for 2025. This is the most gorgeous Heathery Plum, and this in a living room for a really cosy cocooning feel would look great. And other colours in their range include these rich, almost like decadent reddy browns. We're still seeing a lot of browns in schemes this year as well. And of course our rich earthy greens that just feel so great in the interior. And this one is Rose Pine, which is part of Benjamin Moore's 2025 colour palette. Number 5, this kind of leads on from those tactile elements in our space. Patterned upholstery is on the rise, and we are seeing lots more unique and inventive ways of using gorgeous pattern in our homes. I am personally a huge fan of pairing pattern on cushions, throws, reupholstering units that I find on Facebook Marketplace. And a really great example of this, which I'll pop on the screen now, is this footstool that I picked up from Facebook Marketplace for free. I then got this gorgeous fabric from Harlequin, which I'll link in the caption below, and it has completely not only transformed the buffet, but it's on trend and it just looks great in the interior. It pairs so well with the other colours that I use on the cushions and across the rest of the room. And even if you don't want to do any kind of reupholstery, I would really recommend starting small with your cushions. Don't be afraid to mix patterns. What I do say is when you are trying to work out what goes with each other, is always go for a larger and a small print. I personally don't think you can go wrong with kind of a geometric print or perhaps a floral print, and then add in some angularity to that with some stripes. Stripes are one of my favourite patterns, and they're one of the easiest to start getting comfortable with if you're not brave enough to go for all out ditzy florals and really heavily geometric designs. Number 6, we are talking about the ceiling, or as designers like to call it, the 5th wall. The 5th wall is making waves this year across all of our interiors. It's no longer a second afterthought, and it's no longer the place that you instantly think of painting white. There are some really inventive ways that you could start including the ceiling that becomes part of your overall design, rather than just, as I mentioned, an afterthought. Whether you choose to colour drench the room in one complete colour for a cosy cocooning effect, or perhaps you're brave enough to try some wallpaper on the ceiling. There's also some really good methods of bringing the colour slightly down, as you can see here, and it just creates a gorgeous cocooning around the room, and it just feels a bit more intentional than just painting the ceiling. This looks so good in this bedroom. I absolutely love the design. This is by Studio McGee, and it's just a really good example of how you can start including the ceiling in your design plans. And I think this would look particularly good in a living room. And coming in at number 7, and my last one that I'm going to mention, is we are seeing a return of warm toned flooring. In previous years, we've seen lots of light washed flooring, which has been predominantly seen in the farmhouse trend and also earthy inspired interiors. But we're starting to see a return to warmer flooring, which is definitely a need for those warmer tones in our home that make us feel good, but also connected to nature. I've personally always been a fan of darker flooring, and we've actually just redone our oak flooring in the property that we purchased, and we restored it and we brought it back with a natural oak stain. It's slightly darker than what I'm used to, but I absolutely love it. And I think there's so many pluses of using warmer tones on your flooring. It instantly warms the space. It takes up one of the biggest expanses of a room. It's the first thing you typically see, and it also helps to ground your scheme as well. Changing flooring is really something you can only do if you're in the middle of a renovation. So if you have got very cold toned floor, perhaps you've even got a grey carpet, I do recommend adding a large area rug. It's going to break up the monotony of the grey. It's going to add some warmth and balance against the grey. It's also going to stop any of your furniture from floating in the space. So I want to know, which of these living room trends do you love for 2025? Are you a trends lover, or do you prefer sticking with what you know and love? And if you enjoyed today's video, please do give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button if you like to see more videos like this in the future.